Mr. Issa has joined us. Mr. Issa.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. And the fact is, this is probably the one nearest and dearest to my heart of all the hearings. You might wonder why. Well, the CUA Council, how do I know it's not a CYA Council? I'm serious, Mr. Fitzpatrick. I am the beneficiary of 20 months of having subpoenaed documents that are unclassified held and not delivered to this committee, even though they were subject to subpoena, because they were unclassified but embarrassing. In those 2,200 different classifications, did you see that classification, unclassified but embarrassing? Ms. Lawrence, is that one of them that you plan on using?
No, sir.
You use it every day. Transportation Safety uses it all the time. We subpoena documents, and Ms. McDermott, I know that you're on our side, but quite frankly, when you say it's already covered, no, it isn't. This administration systematically does not reply honestly and fully and with even subpoenas of the various committees. That's just a fact. It's a reality. One of the things that we've seen is that the best way to get evidence, unclassified evidence, is we depose somebody, and on the evening before we're going to depose them, we get a ration of documents that are somehow responsive to it. The fact is, this is near and dear to my heart because I don't think you should have a right to any of them. I think the whole idea that there's anything below secret is hogwash. I think the idea that other than personally identifiable information, meaning information is sensitive because it doesn't truly belong to the government to release, such as your email address, even if it's a government one, being released to the entire public, your birthday, personal information about your home. We can all agree that that information is not secret, but by definition shouldn't be released. Do we agree with that? Is there really any other area that people get to see without a background check, people get to handle without knowing whether they're pedophiles, whether they're drunks, whether they're going through personal traumas in their lives, et cetera, et cetera? In other words, we have no security on them other than they're a Federal employee or a Federal contractor. They get to see all this information, and then when Congress subpoenas it, we don't even get it. Is there anyone that's going to justify those 2,200 categories here today? I'd love to hear it. Ms. Lawrence? I mean, I'm thrilled to hear that there's 2,200 requests for unclassified information to be withheld. Of that 2,200, I'll take out of it as many as you say include personal identifiable information. Give me another one.
If I may clarify that number and understand that you entered midstream, 2,200 was the number of individual submissions that came in from agencies where they thought they had some
a lot of redundancy.
Authority. There was a lot of redundancy, and a lot of it was not, did not meet the threshold established in the executive order that authority can only be established if it's been granted by law through the Federal regulations or through government-wide policy. Those numbers, there's 22 high-level categories, 85 subcategories, based on 314 individual citations of either law, regulation, or policy. And so while I do not dispute the characterization of agencies' desire to withhold information to their advantage, what is authorized under the CUI program is only information in these categories, these narrower sets, 22 and 85 subcategories, can be safeguarded or dissemination control. Their disclosure through other processes or the eventual decontrol are matters of discretion. And
we fully understand that, but understand that the President signed the Data Act just a few days ago. That Act intends on making across government the vast majority of information that exists in our databases searchable, addressable, downloadable, which would include a system in which, because of the strength of the metadata, you'd be able to exclude personally identifiable information. But essentially, and we're not talking about emails for a moment, we'll leave those aside, The intent of it would be to open up all of government, to make you able to say that a particular data point is not to be released, such as personally identifiable information, locations or times, certain things like that, predictive information about events that have not yet occurred. If we are going to open that up, we can't have these levels of classification because it will essentially close systematically all of these databases, won't it? Ms. McDermott, you really don't care about hunks of paper being delivered anymore. You really care about the data wealth being mined in order to get real information, don't you? Isn't that really the modern America?
Well, that is part of modern America, but we actually are still very concerned about the paper getting delivered to nonprofit organizations that make it available to journalists, to that sort of thing.
Right, but let me explain one thing to you that I've learned the hard way in 5 years on this, if you will, leadership of this committee. Till today, if I subpoena the EPA for emails, they send out to the people they think may have responsive information, asking them to voluntarily look through and see if they have something that we'd be interested in, and then they get to submit it. That is a systematic system of exclusion of at least unclassified but embarrassing information. Only through direct access are you ever going to get what you want versus getting the paper they want to give you and then searching through it and saying, you know, if this exists, where's this other piece? And then having to apply. How many times do you reapply again and again because a tranche of information tells you that they're not giving you at all?
I would, if I may respond
Please.
just on the email part of it. Regrettably, that experience about asking people to search their hard drives is because until very recently, because of regulations that were promulgated by NARA back in the 90s, agencies were not required to organize their email. They were not required to treat it as records of offices. They could treat it all the same. And what has happened over time is that it's on people's hard drives. It's not been centrally collected. It's unfortunately true that agencies don't know how much email they have that's responsive. And it's not just Congress that gets this response. It's our colleagues in the nonprofit world who ask agencies for responsive email, and they say, we'll look, but it's going to take a long time.
Yes, we were told by the IRS commissioner just the other day, was it I guess it was IRS, that it could take 2 years to respond to our questions, far longer than the IRS gives you in an audit to respond to theirs. Let me just close quickly with a question. If we are going to have classifications below secret, and this committee, among its jurisdictions, controls basically the question of people holding clearances, how many categories of cleared people are we going to have to decide what level of background investigation, what level of denial? If somebody is going to look at unclassified information that has some pseudo-classification level that keeps the public from seeing it, do I need to know whether they are currently on probation, whether they have DUIs, whether or not they are convicted pedophiles? And if so, how do I come up with all those classifications? How many will I need, Mr. Fitzpatrick?
The
cleared
draft
information,
rule, the
cleared
intent,
people, right?
actually requires no specific personnel security vetting for access to controlled and classified information.
So, in summation, what you are telling me is below secret, we can deny the public through a maze of different processes access to information while allowing people who happen to work for the government, either as contractors or as Federal employees, to have unfettered access even if they have things which would make us question that access, right?
Well, no, the standard is only for that information which requires a safeguard or dissemination control and is accompanied by a lawful government purpose, regardless of your status in government or outside of government. And so the
tax cheats at the IRS get access to my tax information. Well, even if I've been persecuted directly by the IRS, I can't get that. I understand what you're saying. I question in this hearing whether or not you're going down a road of any sensibility. If you can't tell me who should be excluded within government from seeing information, if you can't tell me what level that we should put as a requirement for people to be cleared for that information below secret, because we have rules for secret and top secret, then I question whether or not you can create any category other than personal identifiable information is on a need-to-know basis, and other than personal identifiable information, I question whether or not you really can do the process that you're asking. And I think Mr. Connolly said it very well during his 10 minutes.